And thank you for staying with us on Citizen Extra, where we're bringing you news as it happens across the country and around the world. This hour, staying with me in studio is Sandra Ochola, who is a governance expert. She's joined by Vincent Kimosop and Cynthia Mutere, who are also governance experts, and we'll be speaking to all of them very shortly. But first, we want to take you to Eldoret, where we are following the nurses' strike and, of course, its impact on residents there. Our reporter John Wanyama is standing by and now joins us with an update. Wanyama, if you can hear me, what's the situation in Eldoret?
Thank you, Anne. The situation here in Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, Eldoret, is really bad, putting in mind that it has been reported several people have been dead now, and we are just trying to do a follow-up. And as we talk to you now, I've been informed that one patient has just died in the casualty a few minutes ago. And the situation still, students are the ones who are still treating patients in this hospital, and most people are worried what will happen if this strike will still continue. Moi Teaching Referral being the second largest hospital in Kenya, and the hospital that is the largest in Western region that is treating people up to Southern Sudan. Now people are asking themselves questions, what will happen if this strike will go for another 1 week? Will people still continue dying, or what will happen? I just want to talk to one of the officials in Moi Teaching Referral Hospital just to bring us up to speed what is really happening behind these walls. And as you can see behind me are just nurses who are sleeping, those who are relaxing, they're enjoying, they have nothing to do at all, as patients are really crying in the wards. Maybe if you can move closer to me. My first question to you, what is the situation in our wards, and are there patients who have died because of your strike?
Well, the situation is very dire because nursing services was withdrawn as from first, and only a very minimum number of nurses, those who are there just in case there is a very serious patient to take care of. But then as we are at the moment, the situation is very serious, something needs to be done. Students are the one taking care of patients, though with very minimum supervision, or at times without any supervision. So that is very serious, and indeed the government should wake up and stop these side shows of jobbers all over the crowds of Kenya, when patients are dying but leaders are entertaining Kenyan citizens with jobbers hovering all over the crowds of Kenya.
So what is the situation? Maybe are there patients who have maybe succumbed due to nurses' strike? If you can stress on this.
Well, I cannot confirm that, but then this is, as you are aware, this is a second referral hospital in this country, and then the possibility of patients dying as to the lack of nurses in the wards is very high. But I cannot authoritatively say that patient so and so has died as a result of the strike, but that possibility is very high. Yeah.
We are seeing your nurses just lying on the ground relaxing. Maybe when are you coming back to the hospital?
Well, that one I cannot state in a particular way that this day we are going back to our workplaces. That can only be determined by the government moving very quickly and giving the demands that nurses are asking in this institution. And of course it is about the CPA. If I can borrow Dr. Oluga's message yesterday, that these government officials are treating a CPA like a very precious gold or metal that is hidden somewhere, when it is a very simple document. But these government officers who are being paid by the taxpayers are not serious. If Kenyans listened to the CEO of SRC yesterday night, I mean, she's just thrown the work, the whole issue in limbo, because we, the union in MTRH and then the management of MTRH, we had made very much progress as far as the CPA is concerned, but what Annie Gitau said yesterday, I think it has taken back to square zero. So indeed, I cannot confirm that this strike might end anytime very soon.
We saw one of your own, John B, claiming that this strike is illegal. Is it in Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital?
Well, we are engaged in a legal strike. As to the words of John B, I think those are personal sentiments from John B, and then the government and the Kenyan citizens should not take him seriously.
This is your chairman.
Well, a chairman does not work alone. Kenya National Union of Nurses is an institution, and John B is an individual, and as far as we are concerned, the only authorized person by the union to speak on behalf of the union is the General Secretary. So any words, any information from John B should be treated with contempt.
Thank you very much, and we are still following up to these stories to see what is really going to happen in this region, and once we get this information from this side, you and our viewers will be the first one to be informed. From my side, I have no much, and back to you, studio.
John Onyama reporting for us this morning. Joining us now in studio, our analyst, Cynthia Vincent Sandra. Good morning to all of you, and thank you for being with us this hour. Vincent, let me start with you, even as we delve into politics, beginning from what we've heard from that official saying, and he says, how do politicians traverse the country campaigning in helicopters while Kenyans cannot receive, basic medical services? Is this going to become a major campaign issue?
Not really, because you know very well that our politics, at the end of the day, it boils down to the whole issue of mobilizing around ethnic blocks. But what it can do is that any of the factions, because you know very clearly, currently we have the race has clearly shaped into what we more or less know, that we have two front runners. Any of the campaign wings that is going to package itself very well and ensure that it gives hope and inspiration to Kenyans on this issue is going to carry the day. And if you remember, in 1997, the then President Moi, when teachers went on strike, I remember Ambrose Odongo was the Secretary General of KNUT. The then President actually had a magic strike for an agreement with the NAT, and that actually was one of the things that got Moi re-elected. As you know very well, and that you have teachers in every part of the country. So I think from a strategic perspective, unfortunately we are talking about strategy when the health of Kenyans is at stake. The nurses are saying that the only time where our issue can be elevated from people's concern to the political discourse is when you are nearing an election, because you remember that they came from the strike the other day and they were not successful. So I think they've retreated, and let us politicize this issue. And I am one of the firm believers that even though devolution is one of the most successful things that we got from the constitution, there are policy gaps, particularly some of the things that were hurriedly devolved in the health sector. We have to have the courage to actually revisit. Maybe is it time we still have the county governments manage the service in terms of the facilities, the buildings, but in terms of the human resource management, if we can go back to a centralized management, because this thing has been there since 2013. The doctors even are still complaining. So perhaps this is the time we have had conversation, and I can tell you any of the factions that will give an answer to this will most likely help in boosting its momentum moving to the elections. Yeah,
but you know, when you draw the parallel between the teachers, yes, the teachers and the nurses, and what the then teacher strike did for the retired President Moi, the numbers are different.
Remember, I agree, politics about numbers. If this was teachers who were talking today, actually, you would expect one of the factions would have issued a press statement. Right. But as you know, elections aren't very well. I know you've interviewed all of these guys here on this platform. Right. Everybody is trying to project the other one as the better alternative. And this would be a good opportunity, if you look at even the way Council of Governors addressed this. They were projecting and deflecting this into the national government. But you remember people say, hey, this is something that is squarely within the purview of the county government. So in my view is that it can be a good political fodder. I know nurses are not many, but remember, and your reporter, I've just forgotten his name, who has just told us that is somebody, we have people who've lost relatives during this period. What do you expect those people, will they be excited to go and vote when you are not there for them when in times that mattered? Absolutely not.
Right, and of course this is a vote where, you know, every lost vote counts, the +1,
yes,
as it were. All right, let's switch to politics proper, and Cynthia, I'll begin with you. We saw President Uhuru Kenyatta campaigning in Kisii. He's heading for Nyamira today, but before we look forward to the Nyamira campaigns this morning, let's just focus on what happened in Kisii. Remember, this is an area where we saw, you know, youth ahead of his visit burn, you know, Jubilee materials, showing their displeasure with his visit, trying to portray the image that this is not in fact a swing county, that this is very much an opposition zone. And yesterday the government released 358 million shillings to compensate the 0708 post-electoral violence victims. Tell us about all of this and what you think Jubilee's chances are in this offensive in parts of Nyanza and Western.
Yesterday when the president landed in Kisii, his opening statements were really shrouded with humility, very apologetic, saying I'm humbly coming into this region to humbly ask for your vote, to walk with us this path. And it's a bit different from the stance that he had taken when he had earlier visited the area. I think when they were there some time ago, even as the entire Jubilee, with the deputy president, they tried to make the IEBC and the ICC an issue. And that didn't go down too well, because now that raised the issue of people who had not been compensated, people who had not received their repatriation from the 2007-2008 post-election violence. So that affected him, and we do see that the Jubilee did go back and re-strategize and see a way of coming back into Kisii. Of course, he's come back alone, because then the communities of Kisii and Kalenjin, and they see the deputy president as maybe the head of Rift Valley and maybe would not bring too much of value if he came in first. Of course, he's going to be joining him today in Nyamira, but we see the president now spearheading the Jubilee campaign, coming in first, of course all clad in Jubilee, and now speaking in a more reconciliatory tone, very humble, and of course releasing this check. Too little, too late. Of course, people are happy to receive some benefits. We've seen on social media people saying that it's less than what other communities received before, and so that's really nothing much, but it is something, and it is fair to say that it is good that the IDPs will be receiving something, at least to help them sort out their lives, because right now the campaigns are really shaping out to be about livelihoods, better living. How is government helping people live better? And especially when you look at the question of IDPs, people who are displaced, who have lived through this for the past 10 years, and 4 years into Jubilee administration, this 60 days to an election is when they're coming in to answer this question. So it's a little late, but it's okay. But they're hoping to get 35%. I don't know how they're going to be raising that, because when you look at the figures that they had last time, they managed to get at least 26% of the vote in Kisii, Nyamira areas of Nyanza. And so they're hoping to increase that. And the way they're doing that is at least making many stopovers, other than just having one big fat rally where you bring people to a particular place. So it gives you more coverage of the area. You're able to speak to many audiences as you're traversing the different counties, or making stops, let me say, in the county. And so that would probably help them whip up the vote, try and get the vote out, at least to increase their numbers in that area. But it's still a NASA stronghold, and so it's still a tall order.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that, 30%. What would constitute 30%? Because if it's Western Kenya proper, then you would say, they've tried to revive factories, etc. We did hear the president talk about the extension of SGR into this region. But before getting there, Sandra, let me ask you this, because we've talked about post-election violence victims, and, it's confusing to the extent that we still don't know 10 years later if everybody was resettled. There still is uncertainty. We saw government say, 2 to 3 years back, everybody's been resettled, everybody got their funds. A year later, you have people outside parliament, saying, what about us? And it has become, again, a politicized issue to the extent that some feel, certain IDPs were taken care of, others weren't. Why do you think this issue remains so dicey, and where did we not get a grip of managing the situation?
Like you rightly said, I think it all starts with the politicization of the issue. And I remember during that time I was part of the team that was developing an IDP policy to help us address IDP issues in the long term. And looking back, I think one of the problems that we had at the time was in terms of registration. Because you have IDPs who are displaced but were living in the camps, and then you have the integrated IDPs. So a lot of focus was on the IDPs who are living in the camps, and that is where most of the services went, that is where most of the focus was, that is where most of the money went to. And then now you have the integrated IDPs, whom some still argue to date that they truly weren't IDPs, that simply because they weren't in the camps and simply because they didn't receive assistance from the government, so they were not entitled to get money. But then we know deep down that for as long as you've been displaced from where you live for economic or political or other reasons, you still are entitled to compensation. And so without proper follow-up of these processes, without proper follow-up of these victims at the time, then that discussion just disappeared. And then of course now the ICC issues came in, and issues of accountability, local level accountability, which we have not addressed to date. So it's sad, like you said, that this issue is being politicized, and it has been politicized for a very, very long time, to the detriment of those people who suffer, to the detriment of the younger people who are coming up and participating in politics at this point. And I think it's important for us, now that we have an IDP policy and we have an IDP bill, act for that matter, it's important for us to develop proper strategies that can address issues of displacement in a more comprehensive manner. But to address the issue of Uhuru's tour in Kisii, I'd say that it might come off as opportunistic at this particular point, regardless of how much money you pour at this point. It might come out as opportunistic because people will say you've ignored this community or for the longest time. So what you're doing now is not out of genuine will to help, but it's all for you to gather votes.
Right. I think if you look at it, remember this is politics, Sandra, and I'm not in any way speaking or just analyzing. The reality of it is that you see both the Jubilee and maybe even NASA, they've all been in government. So the question will not be that you have come in too late. It will be in your term, for example, what did you do for us and what have these guys done for us? If you remember in 2013, Uhuru was elected president. The 50+1 was 8,000. So any number that is going to add you to the 8,000 is actually very critical. And I'll tell you this, in politics I've realized, I'm an economist myself, that when you champion development, this number of, we've connected this number of houses, this number of roads, Kibaki's campaign in 2007 showed us that it really cannot win you an election. You have to do things that resonate very well, and that's why I agree with my colleague who says that the president was very humble. You know, as in when you have done a mistake and you go there politically in a way that shows that, hey, we are remorseful, we have come in too late, but nonetheless we are here, and this is it. I think for me, what I would want to see, Anne, is that we become bold as a country and we start addressing what are the real core issues that get us into this place in the first place. Because we have a constitution that when you say you are a citizen of Kenya, it comes with certain entitlements. One of them is living and thriving in any part of the country. Me and you, all of the three of us here, some of us have come from a country. Nairobi has accorded us an opportunity to actually express our talent and skills. Now, if we are, instead of, and that's one of the things we have, instead of the piecemeal approaches to the issues, we need to confront what is it that gets us here. This high-stake politics, mobilization on ethnic dimension is actually some of the things that drives us. Because tomorrow morning, nothing, look, 2013, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto came together. They come from the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin community, who are really the aggressors in 2007. Now, it doesn't mean that now they are still united. We might have other, if we do politics the same way, other communities might be displaced. So how do we ensure that we do not have politics and sacrifice people at the altar of ethnic mobilization, so that everybody lives and celebrates their lives wherever they are?
What's the answer to that?
I think I have the answer to that. It is looking at truth and just being very real to it. Because we did have a commission that went around to collect views from communities and came up with the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission that was actually, and came up with a report by the TGRC. Actually, the commission was the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission that came up with that report. That report to date has not been made public. And one of the tenets or the pillars that NASA is going around saying is that one of our agendas will be reconciliation. We have a commission, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, that we only see them maybe doing the Pangani 6 and releasing them, just a slap on the wrist for those who make political utterances that they feel would fuel ethnic hatred.
But would you agree that this is the administration that brought the issues of TGRC to Parliament and the implementation of the same report?
We need to open it up, and as hurtful as it is, we need to begin to address these truths, begin to address them. And that's one of the things that, even as my sister Sandra said, that they came up to develop the policy on IDPs and all. What about reparations? What about gender-based violence? What are you doing about reparations for these people? And it's like we've got lazy people who just don't want to get their hands dirty to do the work, because this is the work that needs to be done to bring healing, reconciliation. It is tough, and we need to walk that path if we go into the next electoral cycle hoping that there will be peace. You want to look at these truths earlier on, so that even as there's so much rhetoric and lines are drawn, then people have that healed heart to even look at issues. Even if we're going to be talking about livelihoods, then it's not going to be that Jubilee has not been able to do that for us, and NASA is going to be able to do that for us, and when we go into the election, then we are fighting again, but no people will be able to debate these issues the same way that we come here and people take different stances, and we're able to look at these issues and discuss them as Kenyans.
The report is public, Anne. It is public. What is remaining is if you look at the TGRC Act, they amended it to allow Parliament to have a say in the process. So what has happened is that the report has been stalled in Parliament, and of course for me and you know the political reasons why that has happened. Since I think the question, when you look at the TGRC report, there are also actors in the opposition who have been, let me not say who are in the minority, because the constitution does not, it's minority and majority have been mentioned. The question will be, really it might also be a challenge to really have the political courage to be able to implement it, because we have it's something that cuts across. Let me just bring this closer. I don't think, Cynthia, we need even to wait for the TGRC report for us to be reconciled. As in, why do we? I know it is going to be a catalyst for addressing the issues objectively. It's documented. We invested money, but nonetheless, even before the politicians do put their act together, communities, local elders, churches, the reconciliation will be ongoing even before the TGRC report happens.
And that's why we always say we do a little bit too little, too late. If you see, like integrity issues, even for candidates who are going into the into the election. We're doing this too late. It is now that lists are coming out. IBC is wondering whether they should be the ones who are interrogating these lists, if we should have looked at these reports. It's too little, too late. These are things that as soon as they come out, if Kenyans have put money on it, have put money on a commission, have gone around the country, have found out and they have outcomes from that commission, then we need to start addressing those things. And this is 10 years on. These are some of the things that Kregler told us to do like 10 years ago. And we're coming 60 days into an election, and we want to try and touch on that. I think
but Cynthia, you know, I suppose my question really is whether it is about political laziness, as you've put it, or whether this is a question of fear, and fear to the extent that, you know, when is the right time to re-examine these wounds and what caused it, and whether that is the apprehension of political actors. How do you, rather than, you know, being lazy to do it, is how do you actually
want to open up the wound?
What I mean is, how do you actually examine what caused the kind of divisions that we saw? When is the right time to do it, and how do you do it without reigniting, you know, the same sort of, you know, ill sentiment and feeling that there was that brought us to 0708?
Reducing politicization. Sandra mentioned it a little bit, and their whole administration of, especially, let's say, IDPs, it becomes political. People who actually become recipients of the funds are not people who actually now were affected, or affected in as lived in the camp. You find, like in Busia County, if there's going to be like some reparation, some money going to be given, you find like people coming from Eldoret or people coming from Kakamega to be on the list, you see. So that kind of politicization for the administrators to make sure that these lists are authentic, that the people who actually have been affected in the area are the people who are the beneficiaries, then you begin now then from that point to begin to address now the issues. When you're coming like now 60 days to the election into Kisii to give this check, to give people, does it mean that they never ever received any assistance for the past 10 years or 4 years since the Jubilee administration has been there, that now you're bringing them money? Because now that is an admission that nothing was actually done about it, and now you want to do something about it. But then you see, because of the politics, once you genuinely come into office and you do want to address certain issues, when they are still hot off the press, let's say, that this information is out there, then you begin to address it. You don't let the wound now scab, and then now you want to come back and open up the scab, because now then it will open up a whole lot of other things that we really don't want to be looking at right now. I think the ICC is behind us and the violence is behind us. We are trying not to repeat what happened in this election that happened in 2002.
Are you saying they shouldn't have given the checks? What do you think? What's your honest opinion?
They're right. Let them have it. They were affected. If they were affected, and there are genuine cases of people who actually have been affected, then let them receive what's due to them. So it should have been released. Okay. But it's a little late.
And if I may, I think we've all failed as a people as far as enhancing peace, reconciliation and accountability within the country is concerned. We've had so many opportunities. Right in 2007, 2008, after the post-election violence, we had an opportunity to address those long-term issues that took us to violence. We had the same opportunity when drafting a new constitution in 2010. We didn't take it up. We had another opportunity in 2013 to address those long-standing issues, and we haven't done that. And now we are moving now to 2017, and we are still dealing with the same issues. And so, just like you've asked, who has the responsibility of ensuring that we jumpstart these processes and ensure that we are addressing those underlying issues that ensure that we are going to war or conflict every time? I think the responsibility cannot be left entirely to the political personnel. It cannot be left to one individual to carry that cross. As a community, we need to push forward. You and I, the common person, the individuals who suffered during the 2007-2008 post-election violence, to say, this happened to me, this is what I require, this has not happened. Why don't we come together as a group of 10, as a community of interested citizens, and move this discussion forward, and then escalate this to a level where you are demanding and activating from the government to create systems where you are going to say, if this happens again, we are going to have accountability, we are going to set up criminal justice processes that are going to ensure that election-related crimes are prosecuted. And then you demand from them that all these reports that we have, taxpayers' money has been used to ensure that we have these reports on course. Open these wounds. I think, like you said clearly, there's a lot of fear in terms of broaching this subject. There's a lot of reservation because people are afraid to speak out, people are afraid to be intimidated, people are afraid to be victimized for speaking out against the violations that they face. And I think as a country it is time we address these issues because we are just creating one cycle after the other. I always think back at 10 years ago, now you have young people who are then children. Say they lived in IDP camps. Majority of them you'll find have not been reunited with their families. So what message are we sending to this young person as a community? That there is no accountability and your life does not matter. So this is the same person we'll be expecting to go to the ballot box in 2017 or 2022 with the perception that going to vote is something good and he or she is exercising their political rights. So I think we have a lot to think about as a community. We have a lot to do, and it starts with you and me.
Yeah, you know, Sandra, you know, just even hearing you speak sends a shiver down my spine because I always wonder about, you know, those children. You know, as a reporter covering it then, you remember the pictures of, you know, these kids with Kenya Red Cross and coloring and wondering what really becomes of them when they come of age, you know, to vote and to take politics into their own hands. So it's a chilling statement, and we certainly hope the right people are listening to what we're saying this morning. But before I let you go, Sandra, and as we wind up on this topic of you know, the checks that the president issued, I suppose I should also say that in addition to the 358 million that was given yesterday, he said there was an additional 470 million that was going to still be disbursed. What's your own opinion on it? Was it a good move?
I do agree, as much as I say that from a political perspective it could be seen as a calculating move, but I do agree with what Cynthia said, that those individuals who are affected are deserving of that money, and I think justice doesn't have a timeline. Justice, and in this instance reparation, is something that they deserve 10, 20 years from now. And I think another thing that's important for us to do is to memorialize, because these discussions, you're not going to find them in books, you're not going to find them placed somewhere where we can say 10 years from now we'll look back and say this is what happened. So I think it's important for us, beyond accountability, beyond reparation, to ensure that we have a system where we are memorializing these instances to ensure that the victims and survivors are given the due attention that they deserve.
Thank you so much for your views. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back with Cynthia and Vincent a little later in the program. Stay with us on Citizen Extra.